Hello and welcome to the Happy Horse Nutrition Podcast. You should go and grab yourself a cuppa because Orla and I are back with a whole bunch of Q&As. Orla has put them together just for you and I have no idea what's coming. Welcome back to the podcast, Orla. It is great to have you here.
It was a cute little introduction.
Oh, thanks. I find them the hardest bit.
I've been very excited for this episode. I've been easing into this and I've been teasing you with little tidbits of information.
Oh, yes, you have actually. You have mentioned it a few times over the last few weeks. Oh, I've got this question. I have no idea what's coming. So buckle in and let's go.
Yes, let's buckle in. So in the last episode, I brought up your episode with, Liz.
Mm-hmm.
Liz Owens, yeah. And we talked about equine-dedicated mills, mixed species mills. And one thing, I know we've talked about it before, I've spoken to other companies and vets about it, having like a gold standard in feeding. Yeah, like what that looks like, you know, is it having a set recipe, having an equine-dedicated mill only? One thing that was brought to my attention is nutritionists, you guys who put all of this together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole. And so there's only, I found one in Australia where you can be a registered nutritionist,
Mm-hmm.
human and animal.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's two in the UK. I don't think you're actually on the Australian list.
No.
FYI, Nerida, we need to fix this. But it's made me ask this question going, okay, I have an equine science degree. I don't call myself a nutritionist. I've majored in nutrition. So why there's so many people out there who make supplements, who make feed, and they've done a degree and now they're nutritionists. And I just find it, I just looking at it from an outside perspective. I just think it's a very interesting topic because what makes someone a nutritionist in this country?
There's no restrictions on who gets to call themselves a nutritionist. Yeah, it's interesting when you cross over into human nutrition because in humans, a dietitian has got the degrees and the formal training, and a nutritionist is a nutritionist. I don't know what training they have to do in human nutrition to call themselves a nutritionist, but we don't use the terminology dietitian. Like, I'm not a horse dietitian. But it sounds so funny. But yeah, you're right. I was on the registered nutritionist list for years and years, and I found that I was paying enough to notice to be a member of that society, and there was
no benefit.
No,
because
it didn't change anything about what I do. But I guess where it is useful though is for horse owners to know, you know, this person does have the qualifications. Mm-hmm. And this person doesn't. I guess from my perspective, so much of what I know is because of the work that I've done. Mm-hmm. So my undergrad was Bachelor of Rural Science. So it was an agricultural degree, and it was brilliant because we did soils, we did pastures, we did like all kinds of crop and production animal species. I distinctly remember the one lecture where the lecturer had put up the different gastrointestinal physiologies of all these different animals. I'm like, oh, there's a horse. Wow. And that was it for horse nutrition in my undergrad degree. And then I was always destined to be a dairy nutritionist, and then our dairy industry deregulated in the year that I graduated. And so there was no work in our dairy industry. And Professor Rowe had said to me, you know, why don't you stay on and do a PhD, which I really didn't want to do. I didn't want to keep studying, but then he convinced me and I stayed as best 3 years of my life. I absolutely loved it. And I knew an awful lot I did know a lot about gastrointestinal physiology. I was just thinking about this the other day. I did know an awful lot about gastrointestinal physiology because I was looking at, you know, how is cereal grain starch digested in the gut? And what do we have to do to it in terms of heat processing to make sure it can be digested in the small intestine and doesn't end up in the hindgut where it impacts the microbes in there. So I did know a lot about that, and that was, just thinking about it, I'm going to contradict myself here, but just thinking about that, that was an amazing foundation to then come out. So I finished my PhD and started consulting to feed companies, and then Peter Pride at Pride's Easy Feed back in the day would either take me out or send me out to these stud farms, and I'd be panicking on the way there going, oh my goodness, I know nothing about minerals, I know nothing about vitamins, I knew nothing about all of these different areas of nutrition. I knew nothing about protein nutrition virtually, I was so specialized in grains and starch and the impact of those things on the gut, which I love. And I think it's part of the reason why I'm still so fascinated by gut health, because I understand the gut so well. But everything else I've learnt just through sheer experience. And, be put in these situations where you're responsible for hundreds, thousands of horses at a time, and having to learn all of the stuff that we learn, but at the same time having that foundation of an undergrad degree and then a postgraduate degree, and having learnt to research and having learnt to figure out, well, what is good information and what's not good information, and having that real, you have to question all the time in horse nutrition, because there's some amazing studies and there's lots of not amazing studies, and studies that have been done without a control and they get published somehow. I don't know, but if you're not aware of that and you read these studies, you go, oh, one of them classic ones was a study looking at organic calcium and horses on high oxalate grasses. They didn't have a control group, so there was no way of knowing whether the differences you saw in the two treatments were there to start with, or whether they were actually due to the treatments. I mean, you can't interpret that. That's not science. It's not, there's no way you can interpret that study. But if you're not aware of those things, I guess it does make it really hard. So maybe I don't put as much value on the education part of my experience as I should. But so much of what I know about feeding horses is just from either stuffing up my own horse's nutrition or someone else's horse's nutrition and learning from that, and just being put in these situations where you walk into barns of horses that are worth zillions of dollars, and you think, I really need to be very good at what I do, because there's a lot at stake here. And to be honest, every horse has a lot at stake, because they're either worth a lot financially or they're worth a whole lot to someone emotionally. We're very attached to these creatures.
And this is, it's kind of where my brain has been ticking away, because I've looked at the Australian Society of Nutrition, or the Nutrition Society of Australia, sorry. And there's a little diagram how you become one of these people. And so you major in nutrition, or so you either have to do a PhD in equine or animal nutrition. And then you become an associate, and then you've got to do X, Y, and Z to become that. But if you go and do a Bachelor of Science, then you have to do a certain certificate or a diploma or a master's, and then you've got a certain amount of years of experience that you have to do with someone to actually become an associate, and then you got to do more years to become a registered nutritionist. So I feel like it's changing, and it's changed a lot.
That's different to the process that I went through years ago, I think. I can't really remember. I remember it was due for renewal during COVID, and there's just so much going on that I went, you know what, you just don't fit in my life right now, and it lapsed, and I just haven't gone back to.
Well, and that even again. That, if you were to go and take yours back up, I think you've got to get 300 points or 100 points per year. That's being on a paper, 50 points. So it's not very hard for you to go and renew it. But it's all the people who I'm a nutritionist. I'm like, are you? Anyway, I digress.
So it's a little bit like the conversation we had in the last episode Q&A about feeds. You just have to be aware of who you're taking advice from, and I guess the thing is too, it's something that I've pondered is I should actually do training with other nutritionists, so that we can upskill, because the thing is, there's not that many of us who are PhD level equine nutritionists, and have been around for a long time and have got lots of experience. And often those people that do, they're not that easy to get to. So, having a bunch of nutritionists, because there's a whole lot of horse people. I mean, we have our app, so My Happy Horse, and people can use that, and then they can have access to us to help them with putting their horse's diet together. But if someone wants a human to help them put a diet together, then they're going to go looking for a nutritionist. So I think if we get a lot more skilled up, but it's so much of it is experience too, going, oh, that's really interesting. I haven't seen that before. I'll learn from that. Breeze, I talk about Breezy in, can't even remember what the episode was now. Oh, the one about horses stopped eating. It's one of the more recent ones that's just coming out, so 39 or 40, something like that, episode 39 or 40. And I tell the story of Breeze when she just quit eating on me after she had diarrhea. And I was just like, well, Breezy, you've been in your mid-30s for the last 4 years. Yeah. I don't know how old she is, but she's ancient. and I was just like, are you done? Like, is this you just wanting to check out? She's sodium deficient. Like she'd had diarrhea, and Doug was like, well, we just need to get some salt into her. I kid you not, we put salt into her, and this was probably 2 years ago now. Got her appetite back, hasn't lost it since. So, the diarrhea caused the sodium deficiency, and then the sodium deficiency caused a near total loss of appetite. I didn't know that.
No.
And I'm a nutritionist. Yeah.
So you say.
Cheeky thing. So, a lot of it is experience, and just doing it for long enough that you kind of accumulate all of these experiences. But yeah, the education does certainly help, and it definitely does from a physiology and a biochemistry perspective, and being able to read things and understand what's going on. Yeah.
Well, because on my rabbit hole, I came across my rabbit hole. Yes, rabbit hole. Jesus, it's been a day. I came across the British Equestrian Trade Association, and they have a quote. I thought it was very good. So they said there are many incredible feed advisors and nutritionists in the industry, but we're also seeing a rise of armchair experts giving advice that is just wrong and is potentially dangerous. And so along my rabbit hole, then I found out, so these guys, so the BETA, they have, like, if you want to be a feed consultant or work for a feed company or even work in a store, you can go and do this course and you'll learn code of conduct. And in their code of conduct, it says, understand how to apply the scientific principles of nutrition for the promotion and health of well-being of individuals, groups, populations, recognizing the potential benefits and risks. And then on my rabbit hole, made me think, if you're a nutritionist and you were working alongside a feed company to also promote yourself, and now you've got your product that you've created, but you're now also promoting raw grain in a diet.
Yeah.
Where's the code of conduct and the ethics in that? And this is why I'm livid at this whole rabbit hole I have diving into.
Yeah. And there's so much. And, there's lots of people that I come across in the industry, just in my travels, that I just walk away thinking, this is not, the horses are the ones that lose out.
Yeah.
Because people are given advice that is, anyone who tells anyone to feed cracked, raw, barley, corn, wheat, any of the cereal grains other than oats, is doing a massive disservice to any horse that is fed under that advice.
It's unethical.
It is.
Completely unethical. Yeah. And I just think of the FEI, Racing Australia, all of these big governing bodies who are here for the welfare of animals. I'm sorry, where are you? I want a Liz Owens to start that petition. Come on, let's make some bloody changes.
Yeah. And one of my life's goals is to have it. I'd love to see it be illegal for any horse anywhere to not have forage in front of them. So if you have a horse somewhere, they need to have forage in front of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because there's so many reasons why. I mean, the forage thing, yes, for nutrition, but they're so wired to chew that it's stressful for them. So psychologically, mental health perspective, there's so many things we do to our horses that are, and sometimes it's done through ignorance, and other times it's done because we're selling a product. But there's so many things that are done that are not in the best interests of the horses. Yeah, and raw grains. We'll do a podcast episode that essentially says cracked corn is poison, because it is.
It is.
You stick cracked corn into a horse's gut, and you will disrupt the microbiome to such an extent that you are going to cause health problems in that horse, and you will also negatively affect performance. So if the well-being and welfare side is not a driver of change, then maybe the performance side will be. So horses that are running on cracked corn, they can perform for a short period of time, but you essentially blow that engine apart. You wreck it.
Well, and we've seen it time and time again. They get put out to spell. They look awful. They get, they hopefully don't go back to that trainer. A lot of the time they do. They have a short career, and then they're put into the off the track program.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing for the horse to get out of that racing industry, because they've been given the wrong information by the nutritionist, in air quotes. And then they've, it's just like this horrible cycle.
Yeah.
And it makes me wild. So Liz Owens, if you're listening, start that petition.
Yeah. Start it up.
What is the gold standard of feeding, I guess, is where I want people to start thinking about that and looking at it from that angle.
Yeah. And I love that in the episode with Liz. I love how we get to the point where we're saying, you know what, the best thing for performance is also the best thing for welfare. Yeah. Or, best thing for welfare is also the best. They're not mutually exclusive. They actually support one another. So when you feed a horse, and, I get to see this beautifully with the Kiramar racing team. We're now shifting those horses toward being fed much more like a horse should be fed. And, they're getting the performance benefits, and the horses are happier.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's very cool.
Yeah. That's my TED Talk. I'll get off my soapbox.
She was literally on a soapbox. No, not really. Did get very passionate though. I love it.
Well, it's funny because the more I spoke to some vets last week, and they just blew my mind with some things that they were telling me and stories that they had, and you just want to cry for
the
so
horses.
many poor horses.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully someone is listening from like a governing body, and starts making people do the right thing and having a code of conduct if you're going to call yourself a nutritionist. Anyway, moving on swiftly.
Hey, quick pause. If you're trying to figure out what to feed your horse, you don't have to do it solo. The My Happy Horse app helps you make sense of nutrition clearly, calmly, and without overwhelm. It's like having me in your pocket when you need reassurance the most. Visit myhappy.horse or grab it from the App Store. Okay, let's get back into it.
One of the vets I spoke to last week, no, I'll skip that. I'm going to come back. Staying on nutrition, a hair analysis. So you might remember this. My boy I bought a couple of years ago, and he came with little bags of feed, all different powders and lotions and potions. And his diet was created by a nutritionist based on his hair analysis.
I remember analysing that diet for you. It took me about 3 hours to put all the ingredients in.
I have
there's
it.
so many.
I still have it in
so many ingredients.
Yeah, my happy horse.
I reckon I can find it too. But that was interesting. So for context, it was Bravo, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He'd had a hair analysis done, and then this diet had been formulated. But the interesting thing was, when we put that diet through the diet analysis software, at that time it was FeedXL. Now we're in My Happy Horse. It was still holes all through it. From memory, selenium and iodine were low.
It was disaster.
And there was things that were like really crucial nutrients, and they still weren't met despite all of the ingredients being fed. But this was actually a question that came up a couple of times in panel discussions and Q&A sessions at the American Association of Equine Practitioners Convention in December last year. People asking, about hair analysis. And I guess my main answer is I actually don't know enough about it to be really confident in giving an answer. I know that you can use it and quite effectively for heavy metal detection and some sort of toxic substances. I remember there was a horse years ago who was unwell, and we ended up figuring out, and it was through hair analysis, that when it had crossed the border and been sprayed for ticks, So from Queensland into New South Wales, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
had been sprayed. That was the point. It got sick, and that showed up on its hair analysis. I could be completely making stuff up because it was like probably
Okay.
15 years ago. But I remember going, oh, that's interesting. Like that was a useful case for it. But Brian Nielsen, who we do the podcast with on bone health in horses, he thought he'd be a bit cheeky one day, and he took 2 different coloured pieces of hair from a paint, same horse, and sent them off for analysis, and they came back different. So that kind of says to me, maybe there's not a whole lot of use. And then you've got all the issues of, environmental contaminations and things like that. So the gold standard for me in looking at a horse's diet and figuring out whether it needs something or is getting too much or too little is actually analyze the diet. So look at, what does the horse need, and then what are all the different forages and pastures and your hay and your pasture, and then any supplements and feeds. What are they actually providing in the diet? Is there any gaps, or is there any nutrient deficiencies, or is there any nutrient toxicities? Is there a balance between, if you're feeding grain-based feeds, is there a balance between the concentrate feed and the forages? Is that all balanced up in the horse's diet? I mean, this is why we built My Happy Horse, so you can see all of that. And it's such a. I was actually trying to write some stuff this morning about the experience of the horse owner when you're not sure what to feed, and I'm like, what is the feeling? And it's really hard for me because I'm never unsure of what I'm feeding because I understand it so well, and I've got My Happy Horse, so I just plug in all the information and I go, oh look, everything's green, or oh, that horse needs a bit more of this or that, and we can adjust the diet. So there's not that uncertainty there, but it is the gold standard for assessing a horse's diet, is actually doing the diet analysis and not relying on something like a hair test to tell you, because it's not going to tell you that your diet is too low in selenium and you need to fix that, or that it's too high. And so, I have seen on more than one occasion vitamin A toxicities and vitamin D toxicities. Like, I don't think you'll see that in a hair analysis, but you'll see it in your horse because it makes them sick, and you'll definitely see it in a diet analysis.
Yeah.
If you're over supplementing.
I remember with Bravo's diet, I just pulled it up there. There was something to do with iodine, like he was deficient in iodine. So they put in whatever iodine, and I just looked at there at My Happy Horse, and it is like borderline not even there. It's on the red scale. It's so low.
Oh, still
so
really,
for his deficiency that they were fixing, his zinc is through the roof.
Yes.
I just look at that and I'm like,
yeah.
Makes me mad.
Yeah. And
because you feel like you're doing the right thing, and then
and you're told that you're doing the right thing too, I think is the tricky thing. But and people can be very convincing too when they're selling a service like that. But my approach to horses, especially when they have problems, so you'll generally send off for a hair analysis if you've got a problem with a horse that you can't figure out, to see if you can see something that you haven't seen before. But my approach to horses that have got problems is, let's fix the diet first and we'll see what problems go away by themselves. And if whatever problems don't go away, then we start to dig further. But I can't tell you the number of times over the 25 years, nearly 26 years that I've been doing this, that how many times a horse will present with multiple issues and all sorts of weird and wonderful things, and then we'll go in and find things like low iodine, low zinc, low copper, might be low in vitamin E. There's some deficiencies that are very common, and we'll fix all of those.
Yeah.
And fix, whatever the forages and the grains and stuff are, whatever it's being fed, we'll make sure that that's all in balance as well. In a majority of cases, that horse will just become healthy because it's got the right fuel and all the right nutrients it needs to run all the metabolic processes it needs to run to be healthy.
Okay. And then going back to the question I tried to... So there's a beautiful vet. I need to make you meet her one day because she's just so interesting. And she does a lot of the scoping days that Randlab do. And so she said she wants to know if you have any idea why she'll see a pony come in that's EMS. She'll be like, yep, she goes, it's going to have grade 4 ulcers. Straight away. And they always do. Every single one that comes in, the big cresty neck, blah, 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 blah. She says they come in riddled with ulcers. And she goes, I don't know if it's the inflammation in the body that's just causing it, or is it pain? What? And it's always, typical little ponies.
Yeah.
It's hardy little guys.
Where are the ulcers? Like squamous in the
Oh,
top or glandular in the bottom? Because that does make a big difference.
I can't actually remember what she said.
Yeah.
We
Because
talked so much that day.
it would be a matter of asking a bunch of questions for each individual one, but
Yeah.
a lot of those horses are restrict fed. So, because they get so fat so easily,
Yeah.
they often kept in small yards, often by themselves, and often they don't have something to eat. So it doesn't surprise me, and it's probably something much simpler than it's the inflammation or, something metabolic going on. It's probably more that they get stressed. So if they're stressed because they're away from their friends, they're locked in a yard, they actually don't have very much mental stimulation when they're in that situation. It'd be boring as hell being locked in a small yard all
Yep.
day in, day out.
Unethical.
Yeah, it's not nice, and it doesn't help them. And in fact, we've got a podcast guest coming up, and we're talking all about track systems. So
Oh,
that
cool. Yes.
that I think, and she's very big on their welfare and creating species friendly, species appropriate management for horses, so that they're not just in those little yards and not
Yeah.
eating. I mean, it's the lesser of two evils. If you put them out on pasture, their feet are going to fall off.
Yeah.
How do
Yep.
we manage them so that they're not separated from all their herd mates, and they're not standing around doing nothing all day and bored to tears. They're not spending long periods of time without forage. So just from that perspective, if it's grade 4 squamous ulcers, so the ones in the top of the stomach where it's just skin and it's very prone to being burnt through by the acid whenever the stomach empties, if those metabolic horses are getting only very small amounts of hay every day and they're spending longer than 4 hours at a time without something to chew on, then they're going to have ulcers. Yeah, it'd be cool if she had like a little bit of a survey to start filling in, like how much forage does the horse get every day, and how many times a day would it go longer than 4 hours without feed? Because, some of them, if they're thrown a biscuit of hay in the morning and another one at night, that's like 20 hours they're going to be standing around during the day with nothing to eat. And then that's stressful. And you can then end up in this situation where they've got ulceration in the top of their stomach, which causes pain. And then there's starting to be a lot more talk about pain and stress being one of the causative factors for the glandular ulceration. So if they're in pain from squamous ulcers, then that sounds like potentially it's going to participate, going to cause, let's go with cause, it's easier to say, going to cause the glandular ulcers in the bottom part of the stomach. So I think for those horses, for your metabolic horses, and I get how hard they are to manage, because like Popcorn is in our track. She's with 3 other horses. They're all in beautiful condition, and she's, just because Tumea's not competing her anymore, so she's not being ridden, she's cresty, she's overweight, and I was looking at it thinking, oh, what am I going to do with you? Because I mean, I could build 2 tracks, I guess, and just have less feed for her, but she's restricted down as much as all of the others, and she's moving a lot. She'd be moving sort of 3 or 4 Ks a day at least, if not sort of 4 or 5 by the time they walk in and out for water all the time.
Yeah.
And she's still overweight. But I guess like just trying to getting them to eat enough so that they don't have an empty stomach without exceeding their calorie requirements, so that they don't get even fatter and even crestier, is really tricky. This is where straw becomes really handy. And if it was just her in the track, then I would give her less pasture on the strip grazing and give her more access to straw. But I have to figure out how to manage. This is always the thing, isn't it? Like, how do I manage her in amongst the other 3 so that they get enough feed and she doesn't get too much? And maybe muzzles, but she's my horse that she's so adamant that she will graze through that muzzle that she was wearing her front teeth away. So,
yeah.
tricky.
My new way with little chippies is I go out to the farm with her and I just let her run along beside me. And so I'm riding Bravo. And when I say it is, if anyone has the opportunity to just free run their pony, it is the best therapy in this world. Like she now thinks she can muster cattle. She was petrified of them. We had to get in a heifer jump the fence. And so we went in to get it, and I was out wide pushing it up. She nipped in behind it up the fence line and just started pushing it up the fence. It was the funniest thing. So she did like 15 Ks and she cantered up ahead of me. She'd drop off beside. She'd go into the cattle. She just, loved
just
it.
to get them moving. Yeah.
Yeah. It's my only way to keep her moving. So I was like, right, I'll come on the float. Let's go.
Yeah. I think one of my happiest riding experiences ever was I'd taken 2 horses, so Poet, my gelding, and then Popcorn, down to the beach many years ago.
Oh.
And we were out on this, it was only a reasonably small beach by Australian beach standards, and there was no one out there. It was late in the evening, and we'd ridden out there, and then we were sort of cantering along, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to let Popcorn off. So she's like flying along this beach, and there's video of her cruising along with me. I was like, man, it is so cool. It was so cool watching her just canter along. There is something really fun about it, really beautiful about
it. It is. I loved it. And it was fun to actually watch Chips like go ahead, and she'd go and find, like, it was weird to watch the stuff that she was eating as well. Yeah, it was, I don't know. If anyone can do it, I highly recommend it. Yeah. It's my new weekend hobby.
And it is really fascinating watching them graze when they've got access to lots of different species. Like I love watching my horses, particularly Breezy and Alay, who are out in the big paddock and they're not restrict graze like the others, because the others will just eat everything because they don't have a whole lot of pasture given to them every day. But it's fascinating watching them, and also the goats too. They're amazing. I think the goats are amazing with how they just select a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it comes full circle back to what we were starting at the beginning of the previous Q&A with you, is just that ingredient variety and the fibre variety and how important that is for keeping their gut healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy and healthy. Now, there's a listener question. Orphan foals. Why do they always look so rubbish?
Probably because they're not being fed the right thing. Was that the question? That's it. Why do they look so rubbish?
Pretty much. End up. End. I'm trying to think. Did this one have a nanny mare? It did have a nanny mare. It's on a orphan conditioner pellet. It's called concentrate. Again, the fiber diversity I question. There is fiber in there.
There is a knack to feeding orphan foals, and I have helped with feeding. I have never had one, thank God, but I have helped with feeding, like the nutrition for a lot. And I think one of my I have many proud career moments, but one of my proudest career moments was an orphan thoroughbred foal that then went on to be sold at the Easter yearling sales. So, it was a stunning horse. And the Easter sales, I guess, are a little bit later in the year, so it was an older yearling, but still, grown well enough that the farm could take it to those sales, and they're really prestigious sales. So you can, when you do a good job of feeding an orphan foal, you can get them to grow like a normal foal. If you've got a nanny mare, then making sure that the nanny mare is actually producing milk, and enough milk is going to be really important. If you've got them on milk replacer, it's so important to have them on a milk replacer that actually mimics mare's milk. So we kind of think of milk as milk, but it's not at all. So if you look at the difference between cow's milk to sheep's milk to goat's milk to horse milk, they're so different. And horse milk's actually really similar to human milk, but it's not very fatty, and it's really, really high in lactose. So the sugar, like, it's a really sweet milk. So if you get an orphan foal and you just feed it calf milk replacer, the foal's not going to do very well because there's not enough lactose, and there's too much fat in cow's milk to make a proper replacer. So it's kind of an emergency milk replacer, but equally, this is what, if I'm helping someone with an orphan foal, this is what we feed them right through until they're weaned off the foal, is a 50% mix of full cream, like cow's milk, so full cream powder and skim milk powder.
Really?
Because and that ratio will bring, because skim milk, you've got all the fat taken out, so the lactose, the sugar by percentage increases because there's no milk fat in there anymore.
Right.
And if you mix the 50-50 mix, you get something that's very similar to mare's milk, so lower fat, higher lactose, and they do super well on it. So if you've got an orphan foal and you're stuck for what to feed, just your human grade powdered milk, but go 50-50 full cream and 50-50 skim, which is the powder that's got pretty much all of the fat taken out of it. And then you mix it up. Oh, come on, Nerida, think it's something like 12% solids. Can you just sing a song or something for a minute, Orla, while I go back and
Jingle bell, jingle bell,
oh
jingle
no,
bell.
not that one.
Everyone is cursing me right now. I can start talking about Heated Rivalry. That's top of my mind at the moment.
What is it?
I guess Heated Rivalry. You haven't watched it. Your listeners are probably like, "Oh, Nerida, come on,
Yeah,
start watching this."
I haven't watched something on TV. Oh, I did watch Clarkson's Farm. I'm almost at the end.
Oh, it's
I
so
love it.
fun.
I love it. Okay, so 125 grams of skim milk powder, 125 grams of whole milk powder, and 1.75 litres of water, and that makes you up to 2 litres with a 12.5% solids content. So that's your recipe for milk. And then the other piece of that puzzle, so one piece is you have to feed them the right milk. The other piece is you have to feed it to them in a way that their poor little gut can actually digest it. And when they're tiny, like when they're really, really young, so newborn they need to get colostrum. That's it. So get it from wherever you can get it, but get colostrum into them. And then the first few days, you really need to be feeding them like 12 to 16 times a day.
Oh, which no stud farm does, which I can put my hands up. I did. And it was, you're sitting there just, okay, maybe we were at 10 times a day.
Yeah, so and this is, I always say with nutrition, the best,
impossible.
The best thing to do is always the least practical thing to do.
You can only do it if you have night watch, basically, like on these big commercial stud farms, which was where, thankfully, we had that. But yeah, I know the particular farm.
Yeah, can't do that. But yeah, so it goes 12 to 16 times a day, and then by a week sort of down to 8 to 12, and then a couple of weeks 6 to 8, and then by the time you get to a month, you're sort of doing 4 to 6 times a day, which is very doable. But if you go and try and feed them, I remember all the potty calves that we reared as kids. We would feed them in the morning and the night, and they would end up potty gutted, and it's because the milk moves so quickly through their gut when you feed it to them in those big quantities that they can't actually digest it. Like there's not enough time. It just goes flying through and doesn't get fully digested. So, and by the time you get to 2 months, 1 to 2 months, you're sort of down to 3 to 4 times a day. And then you can, you'll generally wean them reasonably early, but then you can put the milk powder into their feed as well if they're happy drinking water. But then it's really important too to make sure that they've got access to forages and a mix of forages. So, don't just give them lucerne hay, give them grassy hays, and there's many different types of grassy hay. If you can have them out grazing with other horses, that's great because they'll learn how to graze, they'll learn how to be a horse, and they get that herd dynamic. But they also are around, the other horses' microbes, the fungi and the bacteria and stuff. So they will hopefully pick that up. And then depending on the horse and depending how well it's growing on the milk and the forages and depending what the goals are for that horse. So with that horse that we got to the Easter yearling sales, we had very digestible cereal grains in that horse's diet from a reasonably young age. You have to be so careful with them to make sure that they are digestible and you're not creating a hindgut disturbance by feeding grain and dumping a whole heap of starch in their hindgut because they definitely don't need that. So it's really challenging nutrition wise. I love working with orphan foals because they're so tricky. But when you do a really good job of it, it works really well. And you can with the milk. I do know a lot of people who have gotten to the point, and you can't do this in summer because the milk just goes disgusting. But if you're doing it when it's cooler or you're in a cooler climate, mixing up a certain amount of milk and then leaving that out in a bucket and, putting hay bales around the bucket or something so that they can put their head in but not walk all over it and tip it over. And the foal will learn to just go and have sips of it and go like that. But funny story that I really should tell you. So Popcorn I bred from Keela, who was this little mare she was actually orphan she wasn't orphaned, but she was taken off her mother because she was an accident, and the people who accidentally bred her swapped my uncle some watermelons for her, and then he had this tiny foal that he then had to rear. So she was bucket reared. He used to give her milk in a bucket, and I was 17, so I knew nothing about horse nutrition at this point in my life.
Yeah.
I had no part in actually rearing her, but she actually grew into a decent sized horse, and she was very muscly. She was a beautiful little thing. And she didn't, when she got older, she did get very bad issues with arthritis. And I think a lot of that was because her nutrition when she was younger was not optimal. But the funny part of the story was we grew up with milking cows. We always had milking cows, and we always milked by hand because we'd only have one just for our household milk. We all knew how to milk a cow. And it's not a particularly easy thing to get a bucket of milk out of a cow by hand. And my dad had been over milking the cow and he'd finished, so he safely put the bucket of milk out and around the corner and put it down, and I've wandered over with this little mare not watching, and she stuck her nose in the bucket and drank the whole lot.
Oh my God.
I was not.
She's like, oh, it's a treat.
I was not popular that day. Not many horses would do that because, a bucket of milk would be so foreign to them. And she was like, oh, beauty, here's a bucket of milk. I haven't seen one for years. But, it was so funny, not funny. But I've never forgotten that. Anyway.
Oh, God.
But yeah, they're tricky. I think maybe I must put a resource up on our blog about feeding orphan foals. I will do that. I need to put it up there. Lots of people have asked me this season for orphan foal feeding. So if you do want that at some point in the next few weeks, check out the myhappy.horse website and go to the blog, and I'll put a resource there on feeding orphan foals.
It's amazing how we did not cross paths when I was working at the stud farm before I worked with, because as you're talking about it, I was like, is she talking about my orphan foal that went to Easter?
No,
really?
It
But no,
wasn't,
obviously not. I
yeah,
know.
no,
I
it wasn't
never saw
yours. I
you.
remember it was Torryburn, I think. Torryburn? I forgot the stud. I don't even know if that stud exists anymore, but it was one of theirs.
Yeah, I love it. I would have, I would love to have that lifestyle of having that night watch and a team around you, to have all the orphan foals in the world, because they're the most rewarding little guys in the world. I love them so much.
Oh, their little noses.
They're just, this guy was really interesting. He was born like a dummy. He was born a dummy. And he was there mentally in a way, but also a bit not. And he couldn't stand properly for weeks and weeks and weeks. The owners were amazing. I was like, yep, no, keep going. And then, he was a massive boy. It would take 3 of us to lift him up because he was huge. And I remember walking, he was like in a rubber box with rubber shavings, whatnot. And I walked down one day and I was like, oh, he's standing. So I checked in with one of the girls. I'm like, oh, did you get him up by yourself? She's like, nope. And just one day he just got up.
Stood up. Yeah, wow.
But he'd come cantering at you and his legs everywhere and he's going left, going right, weaving. And I'm like, oh, is he going to hit me? Is he going to hit the fence? Like, yeah. Oh, it was amazing just to watch them just progress and get better. Oh, I love them. Love them so much.
Yeah, they're so cute. They are so cute. Well, on that note,
yes,
thank you very much for all of your questions.
No, absolutely.
And we'll catch you all next time I manage to corral Orla into, or next time you get so many questions you can't not.
2 months of rabbit holes. You left me too long.
We'll have to make them more frequent. Anyway, thank you very much, Orla, and we will catch you all in the next episode.
Alrighty, bye.
See you. If you'd like to know more about the My Happy Horse virtual equine nutritionist, you can head on over to myhappy.horse. And also, while you're there, check out the Dr Nerida AI, which is me in AI format. And that version of me is happy to answer your questions about horse nutrition 24/7. Thanks again, and we'll catch you soon.